Welcome back. What we're going to look at today is the higher self. Somebody had asked me a couple days ago, is there such thing as a higher self, and what is this higher self thing? So I think I'd like to address it by saying that relationships, and I often will talk about deconditioning. And deconditioning is unlearning. It's a process of unlearning who we are taught to be, or who we've been conditioned to be, socially and in the tribe. Because spiritually, we're all very unique, and the way of the order of the chaos of our, profoundly unique individualities is potentially a future goal, I guess you could call it, to be able to live in that way. And it's happening. There's a lot of individuality on this planet. So we come back to the higher self, and the way I've experienced the higher self is that there is a higher self. You got your animal nature and your angelic nature. You've got chakras that connect you to the earth, and then you got them that connect you to the heaven, the higher realm. And our capacity to be open in who we are, like I said, the intelligence of the higher self, our capacity to be open and in relationship with that is, I think it's natural. I think that's that's the natural that's gotten lost. And as a spiritual guide, this is the direction. It's becoming conscious and awake in a higher self. So the best way to awaken or discover this higher self, I would say, would be through the process of unlearning. And what does that mean? A lot of people make it their goal to get into relationships, and then they kind of get sucked into ways of being and compromise. And I'm not saying compromise is a bad thing. Compromise can, it is what it is. So, and ultimately awareness is the, decoding force around all this learned behavior and repressed energy around who we are and how we're just conditioned to live a life that's been handed down to us. So I would say, I'm not the only one to say this either. The first time I heard this, it was like, I thought that's the absolute truth. And it was a woman, she was a spiritual guide herself, and she said that relationships, the only purpose of a relationship is to get out, to figure out how to get out of the relationship. And I know that, I can even feel saying that somebody's mind is going to be like, what do you mean? Then what? But, so if you can, see that, if you look into your own life and your own relationships and can see how they've become a limiting factor to your own self-expression and, self-experience really, and how even your self-love and self-respect gets wound up inside the others and all the different codes and rules. And, we've lived in this for a long time, so sometimes waking up to these things and seeing them for how they're not working for the highest function of one's relationship to their higher self. If you want to get in touch with your higher self, you got to get out of touch with this relationship bondage. And I'm not saying this like it's, like putting on a pair of shoes. This is the life work, and it's an unraveling. And I use the word relationship because it's true. The minute one starts becoming observant of themselves in a more spiritual way and starts becoming more interested in what's not working, whether it be behavioral patterns or dynamics or any, whatever's not working, we want to be aligned. We want to be in the flow. That's a natural instinct. So it is in my experience that, the higher self and this kind of distorted mind energy can absolutely live in the same, employ the same consciousness. But when you start to unlearn and take time to change patterns, not do them, and just grow your awareness basically and build your knowledge base about why things are happening. There's nothing wrong with understanding why. In fact, when we understand why and we get to the root cause, it releases the mind from the pressure of, wanting to figure it out. And through spiritual practice, you can be in the state of acceptance and not figure it out, and being the energy, awareness just sees. It just sees what's happening. It has no judgment. But I think understanding why patterns develop a certain way, and, I like to use the archetypal realm to get an understanding. And it's completely helped to release relationship forms that weren't authentic for the higher self. The higher self is here to, I believe the higher self's here to be embodied. Like when you open your eyes in the morning, get out of bed, it's for the higher self. This is where we're kind of like aliens. The avatar energy, even though I don't identify with that. That's my disclaimer. I'm not identified with anything that I'm communicating. I'm just sharing experience and sharing my deeper understanding through the process, because that's what we're inherited when we start doing work that asks us to let go and to unlearn. So the one that's present in this unlearning process is the higher self. And the more one unlearns and stops, acting in ways that aren't in your energetic alignment, then one becomes more aware of a presence within that's not associated with this conditioned self, which is essentially the one that gets itself into relationships. Maybe you don't. I mean, if this doesn't resonate for you, then just doesn't even matter. You just have a good day. But it's, there's a bravery to look inside. And so getting out of relationships to me ultimately, is just another way of saying, this is the work that we have to do right now on the evolutionary process of consciousness to get into a relationship with our higher self. And, mystics will say there is no other. There is, you're only dealing with yourself. You're only, others are mirrors. They're a continual potential mirror. Unlearning, higher self. The higher self, it comes from the spiritual center. It knows where we're going, and it doesn't have the mind like the mind, the fear mind, or the calculating mind. The higher self is where we can learn more about frequencies that are associated with trusting in, timing, divine timing, and allowing, ourselves to become attractors rather than seekers. That saying, that which we seek is also seeking us. That just came to mind when I said that. So I don't really know what that means. It's a little heady, but the essence of it is we've been programmed to be seekers, to seek our truth, to seek our love and money. And I honestly believe that unlearning the relationship and the conditioning of oneself in relationship to others is about coming more into alignment with who you truly are. And when we move into who we truly are, and imagine this. I imagine this is like a down the road in the future, just a more collective understanding of this in groups, and how it's everyone's got their own sacred relationship with their higher self. Call it source. But it's like kind of like source personified in this astral form, energetic form. And that astral energy is what needs to be cleaned up. And then we get access to parts of ourself that otherwise we wouldn't. And, the human being is a miraculous instrument and expression of source. So that's what, that was my explanation of higher self. It all ties back into the unlearning of relationships. So here's an invitation for you to, next time you're in relationship or in a relating with somebody, just be observant. Are you playing by their rules? Or are they playing by your rules? Or are there no rules? Or is there room for consciousness to be present and an open-eyed interaction? Where are you at inside? How are you employing yourself in your relationships to others? So it always starts with awareness. And awareness is a really powerful tool. It's a quantum tool. Because once we start observing something, it does start changing. And then the layers can start to peel, and it's a self-discovery process. Trusting the journey. The great mystics will say that we're not making choices, we're not doing any of this. This is all just basically occurring. I guess that falls in line with destiny. And these are just ideas, really, in the end. But these ideas come back to a frequency, and the frequency of the higher self is high functioning. Well, I hope that gave some insight and some clarity and shined some light on something about the complex human. And relationships are, the purpose of relationships is to learn how to get out of them. And then once you get out of them, you can actually relate. So this is what's headed for humanity, or not. Some people will be interested in this and some people won't. And that's the nature of life. So whoever this reaches, I hope that this brought a little bit of enlightenment to your process. Bye.